Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to another Bite-Sized Buhl. My name is Charissa Sedor, and I am here today to give you a quick look at what is in our nighttime sky right now, and also take us on a little trip to the red planet. So we're going to visit our current night sky and see what we have to see. So I have a program up right now that is called Stellarium, and it's going to help us take a look at our nighttime sky. So this is a really exciting time of year to get out and look at the stars. The wintertime sky is one of my favorite times to go look at the sky because if it's clear, which granted, here in Pittsburgh, it has been cloudy for several weeks now. But if you get a clear night, the sky tends to be a little bit clearer because there's a lot less moisture in the air. There tends to be fewer disturbances, so we get nice clear stars. And there's also a lot of really bright and exciting things to look for in our wintertime sky. So we're going to locate some of those today. So if we look at our star map here, I am facing south. So we know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So if you can figure out where the sun sets where you live, that will, and you want to find south, you want to put the sunset on your right. So you want to have the sun setting on your right shoulder, and right in front of you will be the southern part of the sky. And I have our clock set to about 6:40 this evening. So a little bit just right after sunset, and when the stars are nice, when the sky is nice and dark. And this will be the sky tonight, but it's also going to be more or less the sky for the next couple weeks as well. So even if we can't see the stars tonight, definitely look for this the next clear night. All right, so you can already see a few of the things in our southern sky right now, but I'm going to start, and we're going to actually shift over and get a closer look at one of the most recognizable constellations there are in the sky. So you probably can see him already right here. We have the constellation of Orion the Hunter. Here's Orion the Hunter. There he is. Orion is definitely one of the most famous constellations in our sky because this is a really big constellation, right? He's very apparent in our sky. It's also made of some very, very bright stars. So we have the bright star Betelgeuse in his shoulder. It's kind of a reddish orange star. There's a bright star Rigel in his knee. There's also Orion's left shoulder, which is Bellatrix, which if anyone has ever seen Harry Potter or read Harry Potter, you are familiar with this name as well. There's also the 3 stars that form Orion's belt. So Orion's belt is actually what is known as an asterism. So aster means star. So an asterism is a star shape or a star picture. And asterisms are part of constellations. So our constellations are the official map of our sky. So Orion is the constellation, and it contains the asterism of Orion's belt, right? Those 3 stars that form that line. There's also something really interesting in the constellation of Orion. Right here, what look like 3 stars right below Orion's belt, and we'll get a closer look at those as well. We start to see kind of a cloud here. It looks like a cloud. Let's get a little bit closer. We'll start to zoom in here. It'll be a little bit more visible to us. This is something really exciting to see through a telescope if you ever have the chance. This is something called the Orion Nebula. So this is a cloud of gas and dust in space that's trillions of miles across. So it's very far away from us, but it is a huge nebula. This is a stellar forming region. So that means within these clouds of gas and dust, there are stars being born, and we can actually see some of these brighter stars in the Orion Nebula. These are baby stars, essentially. Some of these ones here at the center, those are the brightest ones. Those are actually the ones illuminating the clouds around it. So you can kind of picture we're looking into a bowl of clouds right now with these bright stars at the center, kind of their solar winds blowing those clouds away. But there are lots of stars hidden among these clouds as well, and even early solar systems. So there are some planetary systems forming in there as well. So the Orion Nebula, a famous stellar formation region, and also really beautiful. Definitely one of my favorite things to look at through a telescope whenever I get the chance. And you can pretty much only see it in the wintertime because Orion is a wintertime constellation. I'm going to forward us through time a little bit here. We're going to go forward because I want to see a little bit of what's coming up here. Just after sunset, we're going to go more towards about 8 o'clock p.m. So we can see stars rising in the east as time progresses. And we can see a few bright stars rising here as well as time progresses. Right now we're at about 7:30. You can see I have our time set down here. And we're going to go forward just a little bit more until we get to about 8 o'clock, so we can see some really bright things that have come up in our sky. All right, so we are going to use Orion's belt as kind of pointer stars to play a game we call star hopping. So we're going to use Orion's belt to help us find something else in our sky. You'll notice that Orion's belt will point you down right to this star right here called Sirius. Sirius is the brightest star in our nighttime sky. This is number 1, and it's only visible in the wintertime. So you won't be able to see Sirius all year long. It's rising. It's just starting to become visible in our nighttime skies right now, in our early nighttime skies. It's rising a little earlier each night as we progress through the winter. And it's very bright. So go out and take a look at this bright white blue star while you can. You can also look for the winter triangle, another asterism, right? Another shape we can see. It's made of 3 bright stars. So we can see Betelgeuse here. We have Sirius here, and then the 3rd star in our winter triangle right here is Procyon, and it belongs to the constellation of Canis Minor, the little dog. Canis Major, the big dog, that's where Sirius is. So these are the 2 dogs. Canis Minor, you need a little bit of imagination to see it because, as you can see, it's just a line. All right, so these are a few constellations we can see in the southeastern part of our sky. We're going to swing around though and take a look at the southern part of our sky because there's a lot more going on. You might be able to tell right now. We're going to go back a little bit up here. So we've used Orion's belt to find Sirius. We're going to use Orion's belt and go the other direction this time till we get to this star right here called Aldebaran. Aldebaran sits in front of, there's a V-shaped group of stars here, and we'll get a little bit of a closer look. Zoom in on Aldebaran a little bit. There's a V-shaped group of stars here called the Pleiades star cluster. This is a group of stars that travel through space together kind of as a unit. They're all very close to one another. There's another star cluster not too far away right here, perhaps the more famous. This is the Pleiades star cluster. The Pleiades, the Hyades, and Aldebaran belong to the constellation of Taurus, the bull. But let's get a closer view of the Pleiades. So we can see about 7 of these stars with the unaided eye. It's also known as the 7 sisters. But as we zoom in, we can see there are hundreds of stars that are part of this star cluster. Almost looks like a tiny false dipper. And we can also see a lot of reflections off of nebulae around these stars as well, reflecting that light. And very hot stars here by the bright white and blue colors that we see. And this is one of the more exciting things to be able to see. You don't need a telescope to see this star cluster. You can see it with your own eyes in the nighttime sky. And it'll be getting high over our heads as the winter progresses. Again, they're in the constellation of Taurus. You can easily find it by finding Orion's belt. So we're using Orion as kind of our guide star in this part of the sky to help us locate these objects. But there's something else really cool going on in the southern part of the sky. It's going to be one of the brightest things in our sky right now. And you might be able to see it right here. We can see the planet Mars in our sky right now. Now, you probably heard about the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter that happened a couple weeks ago, back in December. And those planets are now setting pretty early in the night. So you can still see Saturn and Jupiter, but they are going down very shortly after the sun sets. So they're not going to be visible for very long until we move around until the Earth moves around in its orbit, and they'll be visible again in the spring and summer skies. But for now, Mars is the star of the show at this point. Mars is going to be shining bright in our sky, and you'll be able to see it very well. Right now, it's high over our heads around sunset and shortly after sunset, and you will be able to see its distinct red glow. And it looks quite beautiful. I saw it last night, actually. There was a break in the clouds, and I got to see Mars for the first time in a couple weeks. Mars is going to be very close to these 4 stars here that form another asterism. This is called the Great Square. Very creative. It is a square. Now, the Great Square is an asterism. It belongs to the constellation of Pegasus, the flying horse. There's Pegasus, the flying horse, and it's right next to the constellation of Andromeda. So you can look for both of these by finding this great square. But here's Pegasus and Andromeda. So another easy shape to locate in the night sky right now. And that will be further towards the west. You'll be able to see that great square. But I want to talk more about the planet Mars here. And in order to do that, we're actually going to switch things around a little bit and take a look at Mars from a different perspective. So what we're going to do is now we're going into the Planetarium software. So here we can see a view of our sky from Earth, but what we're going to do is we're actually going to leave Earth, if that's okay with everyone, and we're going to visit the red planet. We're going to visit Mars. So let's do that. You see we're lifting off of Earth now. We'll see the city lights below us as we get further away and reflecting in the clouds there. Here we have our beautiful blue planet, but we are going to swing out and away from our home planet because we are headed to another destination today. We are going to head to Mars. Now, Mars is a place that we have visited virtually for quite a while. We've sent many robotic missions to Mars. We have robots orbiting Mars, but we also have robots on the surface of Mars. And there's another one that's going to be landing there very soon. All right, so here we can see the magnificent red planet. And we're going to get a closer look here at some of its really exciting features. Now, Mars is about half the diameter of the Earth, so it's a smaller planet than the Earth is. And it is covered with all sorts of different features. Mars has a lot of mountains. It also has a great canyon, and that is what we're going to take a look at first. So we're going to get a little bit closer here and take a look at Mars's canyon. Coming into view is Valles Marineris, or Mariner Valley. Valles Marineris is the largest known canyon in our solar system. It is immense. It is about 2,500 miles long. So it completely dwarfs our Grand Canyon. 2,500 miles long. So that means it would stretch essentially from coast to coast of the United States. This would span our entire country. It also is extremely deep in parts. So we get a closer look here. Because in places, Valles Marineris can be about 4 miles deep. So some of those canyon walls are miles high. It's so big that if you were standing inside Valles Marineris, you wouldn't really even be able to perceive that you were in a canyon. It's too huge. You wouldn't be able to see either side because they'd be too far away from you. All right, so we're going to get a little bit further away and take a look at some other extreme features on Mars. Because not only does it have the largest canyon, it has one of the largest mountains in our solar system. As we swing around here, we start to see some of Mars's volcanoes come into view. You can see 3 of them here, another one over here, but the biggest one will be coming up. Mars has a huge volcano called Olympus Mons, and it is the largest volcano in our solar system. At its base, it's about as wide as the entire country of France. And its height is 2.5 times taller than Mount Everest here on Earth. 2.5 times taller than Mount Everest. So it is a huge volcano. Now, Mars's volcanoes get to these immense sizes because Mars's crust does not have, it does not really go anywhere. So here on Earth, our crust is very dynamic. Our surface is very dynamic. We have a lot of continental shift, right? Things are moving around. Our tectonic plates are constantly moving around. And whatever hot spots bubble up tend to get moved around. So we tend to see chains of volcanoes, famously like the Hawaiian Islands, which have formed from the same hotspot, but that crust moving over top of it. On Mars, that doesn't happen. Those plates do not move. So those hotspots just pile on onto one location, making these huge, huge volcanoes over time. Now, Olympus Mons is a dormant volcano, so it's not active currently, but it is still one of the largest in the entire solar system. So it's a very extreme feature. All right, so that was a pretty exciting thing to see. I'm so glad I could take you all to Mars today, but definitely keep going outside, look up at the stars. Hopefully we get a break in the clouds. I think here in Pittsburgh, at least, it's going to be clearer next week. So go out and see if you can find Mars for yourself and let us know right here. And keep your eye here on the Science Center and Facebook page, where we'll have more fun virtual programming for you. But also come visit us at the Science Center, because the Science Center is open now. We're running at limited capacity, but we are welcoming visitors in the planetarium as well. So come and see us sometime. But for now, that is the end of our program. So thank you for joining me for this Bite-Sized Buhl. Have a great day, everyone.